This is CNN Breaking News.
And we begin this hour with President Trump set to meet with his cabinet as a key part of his second-term agenda hangs in the balance right now up on Capitol Hill. And after a week of tariff whiplash here in the United States as the president's trade war clearly intensifies.
And as we know, Wall Street doesn't like the uncertainty, right? Wednesday's green bounce after the tariffs were paused, that has turned into Thursday's red reality check. Let's go to CNN Chief National Affairs Correspondent Jeff Zeleny at the White House. And Jeff, you have reporting along with your White House colleagues about how this all came to be with the pause and this cabinet meeting today as well.
Good morning, Pamela. It certainly was an extraordinary turn of events yesterday, not even quite 24 hours ago, but we have learned that it certainly was the advice that the president was receiving from some members of his cabinet, including the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, who will be in that room today when the cabinet is meeting. He was the one, of course, who was really sounding the alarm and telling the president how deep the bond markets were reacting to the president's sweeping tariff plan. So one thing that this whole situation has really shined a light on are the differing pieces of advice that the president was hearing from Scott Bessent, for example, the Treasury Secretary, versus his longtime trade advisor, Peter Navarro, who was urging the president not to make negotiations. A big question, though, heading into this cabinet meeting, is Elon Musk going to be in the room? We have not seen much of him in recent days, but he's been very active on social media. And his view on this sweeping tariff plan was that it was not good for the economy. So he was throwing stones, quite literally, at the top trade advisor. But the top economic advisor, Kevin Hassett, talked about the cabinet meeting earlier like this.
USTR has informed us that there are maybe 15 countries now that have made explicit offers that we're studying and considering and, deciding whether they're good enough to present to the president. The Chief of Staff's office has asked all the principals that have, skin in the game to come and discuss what their views are about how this should go. And that's what the purpose of the meeting is.
So the offers that Kevin Hassett is talking about there are from allies like Japan, South Korea, and others who have opened lines of communication trying to lower their tariff percentage with the president. So this is all coming as the trade war is very much still on with China. There is no question about that. But the U.S. is trying to sort of circle our allies, if you will, Wolf, to have a united front against China.
And it's interesting, Jeff, Kevin Hassett is also pushing back on suggestions that President Trump actually manipulated the markets when he told people it was a, quote, good time to buy only hours before announcing the pause. Democratic Senator Adam Schiff of California says he plans to write to the White House about it. How is the administration defending itself?
Well, if there is no question that timeline of a few hours between when the president sent that message, be cool, time to buy, versus about 1:18 yesterday afternoon East Coast time when the president sent out his message about a pause on this. What happened during that intervening time? Did anyone have a heads up at all? Kevin Hassett, again, the president's top economic advisor, told us a short time ago that there was no insider trading or any type of activities going on, but Democrats on Capitol Hill are not convinced of that. But Wolf, the reality is, since Republicans control Capitol Hill, there will not be any type of a committee investigation. However, this will be something, a moment in time, really those 4 hours in time yesterday that will be viewed in the coming days. But for now, at least, the trade war on against China, the cabinet meeting is underway shortly, Wolf.
All right, Jeff Zeleny at the White House for us. Jeff, thank you.
So let's check in now with CNN business and politics correspondent Vanessa Yurkevich. She is standing by at the New York Stock Exchange. Vanessa, what are you seeing right now?
Yeah, well, listen, markets are down this morning coming off that enormous rally yesterday. And I spoke to a veteran trader, Peter Tuchman, just a short time ago. And he told me that the real reaction of Wall Street really comes the day after. Yesterday was this relief rally, and today reality has set in, that we are still very much in the middle of a trade war with still historically high tariffs. That 90-day pause on those high reciprocal tariffs are very welcome news to traders here here. I spoke to a few yesterday after the market closed who said that anytime the Dow is up nearly 3,000 points, that is a good day. However, today they are facing down high tariffs on China, that 125% tariff. You have those tariffs in place, 25% on autos. And then, of course, you have that 10% universal tariff that is in effect right now. And you see the markets there right now, the Dow down about more than 2.5%. Look at the NASDAQ down more than 4%. The S&P down almost 3.5% there. But the big questions that I'm hearing from traders here today are sort of, what are the off-ramps here to this trade war? What are the negotiations that need to be happening between these more than 75 countries in the administration? And then especially looking at China, because so many of the companies that are traded on Wall Street here have direct ties to China, get many of their products from China. So what does that look like? One analyst said to me this morning that some of these negotiations could actually center more around other things, non-tariff related things, something like with China, maybe a deal with TikTok or even a deal with the Panama Canal. Those are the questions that they have. What is the off-ramp for this trade war for the president? So here today, I would say less uncertainty, but still a level of uncertainty about where this trade war is going, Pamela. Obviously, we're not seeing sort of those dramatic swings this morning that we've seen in the past several weeks. That is because very much investors here know we're still in the middle of this. Obviously, though, good sign that that 90-day pause went into effect just yesterday, Pamela.
Yeah, I mean, clearly investors are sending the signal, though, that they understand this is far from over. There's a lot to be worked out. But you do have businessmen like billionaire investor Bill Ackman, a Trump ally, celebrating this pause. He was among the business leaders who had turned on the president over his tariff plans. He's now praising the pause and implementing many of those taxes. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, we know the past several days leading up to these reciprocal tariffs going into effect, Bill Ackman, who, as you mentioned, is a billionaire, he is the founder of a huge hedge fund, he was saying that these tariffs would be, I'm reading here, quoting, economic nuclear war. So he said that leading up to Wednesday's tariffs, and he was warning that this could be really terrible for the economy. Now that the president has reversed course and put this 90-day pause into effect, he is coming out and saying that, yes, he was raising concern, but he's praising the president in what he calls the art of the deal, that the president actually did right by this deal. And Bill Ackman and other billionaires were raising those alarms for several days, but many of them are seeing a little bit more of a relief here that the president has maybe listened to advisors, as Bill Ackman said, and really sort of put into place more of a better roadmap for billionaires right now that really, you know, they play in the stock market. They obviously have their businesses tied to the stock market, Pamela. They can be against him one day and with him the next day as they see their stocks rise, Pamela.
All right, Vanessa Yurkevich, thanks so much.
Let me bring in Anna Stewart. So, Anna, we've been seeing European stocks rallying, not just on the news that the Americans were pausing these tariffs for 90 days, but also the fact that the Europeans were going to reverse the retaliatory tariffs that they put into effect yesterday as well. Take us through that.
Yeah, look at that rally. It's pretty strong, and that's largely because, of course, European markets were actually closed when the 90-day pause was announced. So they didn't have a rally yesterday. We're seeing it here, and I think it is being sustained as well by the fact that the EU is also going to pause for 90 days. Although the EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said that while they will pause for 90 days, if negotiations are not satisfactory, our countermeasures will kick in. So a bit of a warning there. But I think for European investors, this is possibly the first time that it's actually felt like almost a reality that perhaps the US administration will negotiate with them. Up to this point, the EU has, for instance, offered 0 tariffs on industrial goods, on autos, and that's frankly been ignored. So perhaps this is an opportunity. Very different story elsewhere in the markets. Of course, Wall Street has opened lower today. The relief rally there is over, and by a number of metrics, you know, even from JP Morgan not shifting their outlook in terms of recession, keeping it at 60%. Some of these assets suggest that people are still pricing in the likelihood of a recession. Oil prices steeply lower at this stage, about 4.6% lower. Under the $60 barrel. It could finish today at the lowest it's been since April 2021. We're also seeing that the US dollar fell sharply, and the bond yields, the 10-year bond yields in the US, which of course President Trump was concerned about, we haven't seen much of a shift there. So we've had this huge reversal, but actually a lot of the fears, a lot of the yippiness, if that is even a word, is still out there.
a lot of golf players will know exactly what that
It's a word
word
now.
means.
It's a word now, Anna.
It's a Wall Street word now. Anna Stewart, thank you so much.